Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Sorry about that. I knew I'd foul up somewhere on the line. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday service with me, live from Somerset, and with Mr. Drewe Manton, Esquire.
Live from Somerset.
Also from Somerset.
Live from Somerset, isn't it?
Keep me that local, folks. How are you doing, Drew?
All right. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm just coming up to the end of 2 weeks off work, so back to work tomorrow. Yeah, well, you know, pays a mortgage, keeps you in models, so
there is that. We've got our workshop cameras set up tonight, so we're going to be taking you through our week of projects. Drew, what has caught your eye this week in terms of news and new releases?
It feels like it's been a bit of a typical August, really, and that there's not a lot going on, is there? Terribly. I mean, most of the news at the moment seems to be around Edward. They're going to announce another 72nd scale kit in fairly short order, but you know, some forums are already up to page 4 of what it could possibly be. It's like, well, but basically we don't know. So should we just shut up and wait? But yeah, I mean, it's you know, Edward generally, most of their stuff is World War II, isn't it? So a new subject. And the 109, the 48 scale 109K is like that close to being released after 3 or 4 years of waiting. So we will. I will certainly be wanting one of those as soon as I can get my hands on it.
Controversial question. This is the 109K the best looking 109 variant?
Yes. I know it was a bit of a porker, a bit of a heavyweight compared to some of the 109Gs, but it does remain pretty much my favourite with the fully covered wheel wells and you know, so some of the very much more interesting very late war schemes, you know, that sort of cross over that, and the Dora 9 sort of crossed over into some really quite out there schemes, didn't they, at the very end? So yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty much as with similar to Stuka's. I like the very early and the very late. So I like Messerschmitt 109 Bs and Cs and Ds, and I like late model Gs and the K. All the stuff in between is kind of like to me, and you know, it's very similar to Stuka's, where I love the Anton. And I love the G2 with the big wings and the big cannons, but everything in between is a little bit to me. So, you know, so I don't know if it's controversial or not. I'm going to say, yeah, for me, it's my favourite, pretty much.
I like it simply because it doesn't have those honking cannon bulges on it. It's got those faired-in ones that I think are,
well, the ones that go from the leading edge back.
Yeah, they just look so lovely, as opposed to those kind of like conical ones that the G has. I don't like them.
Sorry, you mean on the cowling?
Yeah, on the cowling. Yeah,
on the cowling. Yeah. I know. Yeah, it's a much, you know, it was a more thought out kind of fairing job, I think, on those particular guns. But, you know, arguably the F is the most beautiful of the lot because it's got none of that at all. It's just got 2 small machine guns there and no bulges at all. But
well, it's funny you say that because Jerry Doyle, hello, good evening, Jerry. He says the F is the best looking 109, clean lines.
I mean, the argument is is a good one. I disagree, but it's I like stuff that looks a bit more beefy.
Mm-hmm.
I like stuff that's a bit more.
You see, Jim says the 109 E3/4/7 are right up there with the G6, whereas your brother Rory. I'm just reminding you, your brother is called Rory.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Right,
It's always good to have a reminder.
It's always good to have a reminder. He says 109K the best. I would agree with Rory. But yeah, I'm just trying to think how many 109.
This is very much like asking what somebody's favorite track off an album is. If there's 10 tracks on the album, you get 10 different answers. It just proves that it's a good album.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't it? It's
I was just thinking, what was the 109 variant that Revell did back in the late 70s? Because they did a very late
G10,
one,
wasn't it?
It was a G10, yeah.
It was a G10.
I see. To me, the G10 and the K, they kind of like, I know they're not the same variant, but they kind of blend together.
Yeah, well, the thing was, I mean, the G10 sort of remained coming off the production lines even after the K was in production because it was a hybrid mishmash rather than I guess you'd call it the K, a thoroughbred of sorts, and it was just that kind of emergency banging them out the door sort of thing. So the G10 was in production well past when the K was in production. So because it wasn't really production, if you know what I mean. It was kind of like marrying bits up to get kits out the door, to get aeroplanes out the door. So yeah, but like I say, I mean, if we've discussed what the favorite 109 is, and so far everybody's got we've got a whole host of different answers. So clearly, Villy was doing something right.
Yeah, it would appear everybody likes a 109 of one flavour or another. So
yeah,
which is good news. I was going to say that actually I've probably got 2 or 3 boxings of that Revell G10, which I still think is an absolutely stunning.
It's always been a hugely well regarded kit, hasn't it?
Yeah,
hugely well regarded. I mean, for sort of like in the sort of 90s and stuff, when late 90s, I suppose, when modeling started going through this big resurgence, which is still going on to this day. You could see conversions. In the early days of the internet, everybody who was doing a late model 109 started there. Because it was still a hugely well regarded kit in terms of it's a very specific variant of the G10, but any given G10 is. That's why Edward have done a number of different boxings of G10s with different fuselages and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's for a kit tooled in 1978 or 79, something like that. I was
going to say it's coming up to about 45 years. Goodness me. And when you say it out loud, it's quite terrifying.
Well, don't say it out loud then.
I've got to say it out loud. It's coming up to 45 years old. Yeah, that's a shocker. We got a comment from Kaz. They say, "Good evening, gentlemen. Obviously never met us. This is my first time catching you live. Don't worry, the antibiotics will clear that up. Usually only watch a day or so later. Love the show." Well, that's very kind of you, Kaz.
Thank you very much. It's nice to know that. I mean, even if I'm a bit part actor these days, it feels like. So I'm on lates again this week, but we'll be back next Sunday.
Because we're not doing the midweek show because of we just decided in the end, folks, that I just needed some time off after my holiday at Southmead, and
the incident,
as we call it, and we decided just to go for the one show a week. But it keeps us fresh, doesn't it, Drew? It keeps us.
Yeah, I mean, the problem was, John, and we have discussed this already before. 2 a week started to feel a bit like a hamster wheel.
It was a bit of a treadmill.
Starting to feel a bit pressured, and when you start dreading having to do the show, it's time to look at what you're doing.
that'll be me every week then. So
well, there you go.
no, I
but
don't.
but no,
I'm
I
not
think
doing it.
what once a week I think is fine. It's just that I've been off to festivals and the like. So
Yeah, no, it's okay. I've been filling in with pop-up lives and stuff. So yeah, Jim says once a week is a very fresh approach. I like it. Yeah, and Jim also says if that is the model you refer to, then yes, it is a great kit. I bought a copy in 1978 or 79. That's the Revell 48 scale Messerschmitt G10, which is
yes,
still an absolutely stunning kit. It really is. Steve Moores is being a little bit mischievous. He's saying Augusta 109, A109. No.
yeah, and Pavo has already suggested the M109 as in the self-propelled gun. So yeah, so we've got A109, M109, ME109, BF109.
We've got some smart Alex watching tonight, haven't we? We've got
that's
to
the kind
be
of
more.
company we. That's the kind of company we keep.
I know, absolutely. Yeah, it's the kind of company we encourage. But yeah, we need to be more specific. We're talking about Messerschmitt 109s tonight. Actually, the way these things tend to kind of riff off and and kind of like take on a life of their own. I'm just trying to think, which these days is quite an effort.
Steady.
No. But I'm just thinking of the 109 kits that I've built down the years. Now, I think like most people, I've built a couple of the original Airfix 109G. I think that's pretty much. I think everybody at some
I think
stage.
I built that once, maybe when I was about 8 years old.
Yeah, exactly. But what else have I built? I've built a couple of the a couple of the Hella ones. Rory mentioned the Hella K. I've built
again like the 48 scale G10. That is a great model.
Yeah,
that is one of the older school greats, if you like. Clearly, little. This is getting insane tonight with Jen's here, Jamie's here, Rory's here. It's like
it's like everybody we know.
Yeah, so everybody we know has decided to poke their head around the corner and stare at us.
Yeah, exactly. They're all come to cause trouble, I think. No, I agree with you. That Hella 109, all their 109s, I think are beautiful models. I know people will pick them apart, but I think the K especially is rather nice.
I mean, because the K was the last new tool 109 they did, wasn't it? And before that, they'd done the G. That kind of multi-variant G.
Yeah.
I think all the ones previous to that, because they did a 109K a long time before that as well, didn't they? Which was not a very good. Some of their earlier 109s were definitely more questionable. But you can sort of track Hella's quality through 109s almost. Same with their Spitfires. They did a 1, they did a 5, they did a 16. By the time they got to the 16, they were really on top of their Spitfire game.
I was going to say, by the time they got to the 16, they were actually understanding the nuances of the Spitfire, especially things like the scallops under the wings, which they completely missed off of the Mark 1 and the Mark 5. So yeah, which is a shame because they're actually rather neat models.
But having said that, Revell came along in 1996 with the Spitfire Mark 5 being 72nd and completely missed the scallops on the underside of the wing. So like Jen says, love that little Hella Spitfire 16. It's a
it's a doozy, isn't it?
Well, that and the 109K was sort of like almost simultaneous. They were within a year or two of each other in release, and they've got that kind of really clean Hella quality about them that makes them such enjoyable builds, and great looking models. I can remember getting my first Spitfire 16 when I was about 9 or 10 years old. 88 pence it was, which put it sort of 25, 30 pence above the equivalent sort of Matchbox kit. So it was, it wasn't cheap modeling, if you like. But it was just, I can just remember being so utterly blown away by it. For somebody who just learned to sand the odd joint and stuff, and I'd only just started doing kits with the undercarriage down. It was an eye opener.
I was very similar, and again, this is going towards the end of the 1970s. We need that wibbly wobbly effect now. But yeah, it was coming towards the end of the 1970s, and the Eaties in Bristol started stocking some Hella kits, and I can remember being in there with my father, and he suddenly just said, "Oh, get one," and for some reason, I picked up the Hella Spitfire Mark 5B. But I remember thinking at the time, compared to the Airfix Spitfires that I built, this was revelatory. It had rudder pedals, it had an instrument panel, it had things that the Airfix kits didn't have, and it's an absolute dog when it comes to accuracy. But I remember this is where you can have things that are very good kits but are actually very poor replicas. And I would say the Hella Spitfire Mark 1 and Mark 5, they're very good kits, they're not very good replicas. So
whereas the Mark 16 was the full pack. It was a full deal. It was
absolutely stunning kit. So I'm just playing catch up with some of the comments here. See, Andy King says Messerschmitt March 2024. Like the sound of that. And Mike Williams says first 109 I built was the Airfix 72nd scale Aircraft of the Aces series 109E Adolf Galland. Do you know what? That's one of the few 109 kits and one of the few Airfix kits. It's one of the few 109 kits I haven't actually built. I've got one, and I do seem to remember it's very rivety. But
yes,
but it ain't coming back for the simple reason that Airfix did. I remember now. They did tool up a rather nice new one about 10 years ago, which is rather lovely, and I have built a couple of them.
I built a bunch of those as well, didn't I?
Yeah,
back in the day.
That's a fabulous little kit. That is. That really is absolutely top dollar. That is. And I seem to remember that we went through a phase of building a couple of the 48 scale ones when they came out.
Yeah, I built 3 of them.
Yeah.
I built 3 of them. They all went off to Airfix. So
good kit.
They're either long binned or hanging around in office or a box somewhere up at Airfix. But yeah, they were nice little models. I enjoyed them. But again, I mean, the thing is that they were nice little models, but we're moving along at such a clip now. As Jen just said, she did an inbox of the Wingsy 109E3. I mean, I've got one of the Wingsy ones here. So have you, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah, and yeah, it looks like an absolute gem of a model. It's one that I think I've got the E4, and it's. The problem is my modelling has slowed down nowadays to such a rate that it's finding space to get these stuff across the bench. I should stop buying models really, but that's not going to happen. So
no, it's not. Penny's Pit Stop says, "At last, I catch you while you are still live." Or in my case, still alive. I usually catch you right at the end or post stream. So, well, Penny, good to have you with us tonight. That's always nice to have somebody new watching the show. Sorry, just still thinking about 109s. I've got the big Airfix 24 scale one that I would like to build at some stage. So if any of the guys from Hornby are watching, if they need an excuse for me to build one, just shout. I'll build it. It's actually a pretty good kit.
I mean, I can remember. I mean, my brother Rory got one. I was about 8 or 9, so he'll have been about 12 or 13, and he came home with one day, and proceeded to build that. Oh, God, that was that'll be over 45 years ago. well, probably about 42 or 43 years ago, I would think.
Yeah.
But yeah. And if you think back 42 or 43 years before that, the plastic model industry didn't even exist. So,
Nor did I, which
No.
some people out there will be thinking is a good thing. But yeah, it's yeah. See, 40 years ago, I can remember with absolute clarity. A year ago, can't think. So anyway, right. Shall we? We've got our workshop cameras set up tonight. So do you want to go first, or shall I go first?
I'll go first if you want.
Yeah, go first.
I mean, people have been watching me do this as we go along, but we're starting to rapidly get towards the last few days, hopefully now, of the Cavalier Turbo Mustang. So yeah, that's the Halberd conversion kit with the Edward as a donor kit. It's been going on for a few weeks now. Had a lot of trouble with the paint on this. Had a lot of paint peeling. If you do get the Halberd conversions, I would suggest wet sanding all the external surfaces with like a 3,000 or 4,000 grit micro mesh or similar. It's a very slightly rough surface in some areas, which you can't really see under the gloss deals with it, but you can sort of see it if you like. So yeah, the Halberd stuff is, well, you can see the detail that's had a wash on it, hopefully, all around the nose here. It's absolutely phenomenal detail. So yeah, hugely recommended. And I've been sort of, over the last day or so, I've been dealing with a lot of the minor stuff, like the front of the Dart engine. I was looking at photographs and stuff, and it looked like a light grey rear with kind of a bronzy coloured lip. So I just went with that in the end, and so that will just pop in there at the very end. And then this enormous propeller here, which will go in, and you end up with this. Definitely not a very Mustangy looking Mustang, is it?
No. Mike Williams makes a very good point. He says, never realised the Cavalier Mustang was a two-seater.
Yes, I think it was literally the rear seat. It wasn't a dual control or anything. It was literally just a jump seat, like you'd get from a TF51 Mustang. So it's literally just a jump seat, really. Then you got this huge exhaust, which I've painted, and that's got to go in there, there at some point. So yeah, like I say, it's
it's asymmetrical.
Yeah. It only exhausts from one side. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's all the markings that need to go on it, or all 3 or 4 of them are on there. Little Rolls-Royce markings for the Dart engine on the nose there, but very limited in terms of markings. So some varnishing, get the undercarriage on the next day or so.
Did you use the kit decals, or did you spray?
Yeah, well, the Halberd conversion comes with a very small decal sheet for everything. So I'm just dealing with the wheels and stuff at the moment, so I can get the undercarriage together. That's been painted and washed. So yeah, it's been it results in a very different Mustang. With I think the tip tanks really suit the aircraft. I think the wingtip tanks really suit it. So
Steve Moores asks, no stars and bars?
No, because it wasn't. It was a private venture, so it wasn't U.S. Armed Forces. So no, it was literally the only markings I can see any evidence for are the some stencils and the serial number on the tail, and that's it. Because none of these were actual Air Force projects or anything like that. So they never carried national markings.
Tony's Hobby Room makes a comment here. You're going to like this, Drew. He says, being a nosy one, I have been watching Drew's racking over the weeks. Looks like you need another Drew, and one's enough, And you need, and I think he means another rack. Another rack, Drew, as that one is looking very full. You can never have enough storage space.
Yeah, but you can't see the rack that's there.
No.
If I showed you the rack that was there, you'd probably. Or let's put it this way: the OCD cleaners would have a heart attack. There's about there's 2 entire racks of Hataka and MRP. 1 rack with 3 drawers full of Tamiya there. John, do I buy paints?
You have been known to buy paints.
Do I buy a lot of paints?
That's a bit like saying, "Do I eat cake?" Yeah. So
and there's a 5-tier drawer just behind me there, which is absolutely full of Mr. Color and some AK Real Color. Oh, and there's 2 other boxes here full of Mr. Color. So yeah, I buy paint. I'm afraid.
I just buy paint.
I mean, it leads on to a discussion I think we've had in the past where people very often ask, how does so-and-so perform, or how does so-and-so perform, or can you do this with that? And it's like, I'm invariably going to know the answer because I never ask how so-and-so performs. I just buy some and try it because it's just the way I've always been. If a new paint comes out, I will just buy some and try it. And from that, I will be able to I will be able to formulate my own opinions. But it's one of those little minor irritants, if you like, that people often won't try something.
It's, do you know what? I'm gonna put my foot in it now, but I've noticed I have a feeling that people are becoming very risk averse when it comes to trying things. Is that just me, Drew, or have we had this?
No, I think. I think you're. I think you're largely correct, and it's something you've got to be a little bit careful about how you approach discussing it, if you like, because it's, I'm not out to offend anybody, but quite often you see, how can I use this paint over this? Can I mix this paint with that? It's like, try it and tell us. Just, nobody's asking you to ruin a model. They just try something and see if it works. It might work, it might not. If it doesn't, you haven't lost anything. If it does, tell us.
Yeah.
No, I think, there is a definite sort of risk averseness among a lot of people these days. And like I say, it's just trying stuff, and that's why I've got. I mean, there's a lot of paints here. I could probably throw 80% of these paints in the bin right now because I'll never use them again. But I've got them, I've tried them, and I know what they do. You're the same. I mean, and and I know that I have thrown entire ranges of paints away before now.
Mm-hmm.
Tony's Hobby Room, risk averse or maybe cost related. No, it's not cost related because I'm not suggesting you ruin a model. What I'm suggesting is you take a brush full of one paint and a brush full of another and slap them together and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not really that's not a cost thing. I'm not suggesting you spend £100 on a model, build it, then try a new technique on that model. Mm-hmm. It's just that you've invariably got spare bits hanging around. Like this is a spare Mustang fuselage because, well,
you didn't need it.
Because I didn't need it because of this. So I then use it as test pieces. So I had the so for one fuselage half, I had the Alclad Chrome, the Alclad Bronze, which I've had it for about 10 years, and I know Alclad can tend to clump up. So I did a test yesterday just to see if it sprayed, and it sprayed beautifully, so we're good. Mm-hmm. And then on the other one, this was actually to show somebody that the size of the nozzle, the size of the needle on your airbrush is not directly related to how tight a line you can get. Because that there is Mr. Color sprayed through a 0.5 needle, free-handed, to show how fine, to show that as we've as we discovered a few years ago, John, it's the spray pattern that dictates how tight a line you can get, not the size of the needle.
Yep.
So that is free-handed with a 0.5 needle. But the point is, that was a spare bit that took me 10 minutes to spray up, and that will now probably end up going in the bin because it's never going to be used for anything else. So yeah, I just there's a cost factor if you jump in with both feet into an expensive project with new techniques. You run a risk. On the other hand, I'd also make the argument that if I do that, I'm far more likely to pay a lot more attention to a new technique if I'm doing it on a valuable model rather than just messing around and playing with it. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Mike Williams says he was very impressed with the Halberd Mustang 10 that he built. And in fact, just bear with us a second because we're going to share with you the photographs from Mike's Facebook page.
God, that was an ugly Mustang, wasn't it?
It was, but that's a beautiful model.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely beautiful model. But God, that was an ugly Mustang.
So if you, I'm not going to show all of them because it's Mike's Facebook page. But if you head over to Facebook and look up Mike Williams Scale Modeling, you can see them for yourselves. But it's absolutely beautiful work.
Yeah, I mean these Halberd models are the castings are just phenomenal. So yeah, I mean I will certainly be wanting to build the Piper Enforcer that they've also released because that's yet another different engine option for it. So what are we looking at?
So I'm just going to say, here we go. This, if you want to head over to Facebook, look up Mike R. Williams Scale Modeling, and yeah, you can. It's Mike's stuff is all there. He's building an Airfix Brewster Buffalo at the moment, which is rather good. So there we go. Christopher Joseph Buchholz says one of these lives at Edward. Don't get me teeth in. Edwards AFB's museum yard. Dave Newman let us in after a contest some years back, and Robin Powell made a beeline to it because he was so enamored of the plane at the time. As he swung his leg to climb into the cockpit, Dave said the only things that liked that Mustang cockpit more than him were the Black Widow spiders. Robin suddenly went into reverse and almost levitated out of the cockpit.
It's funny because I was going to mention Robin because the first when I first went to San Jose in 2000 and stayed with Mr. Buchholz, something I'd like to repeat at some point. I can remember going to Robin's house because Robin was living stateside at the time, and looking on his shelf, and there was a Cavalier Turbo Mustang 3 there that I believe he'd converted from the Tamiya kit. I don't know which conversion set it was, but it's one of those models that sticks in my mind, and I've wanted to do it for, well, here we are 23 years on, and I'm finally getting to, I'm finally getting to scratch that itch, shall we say, with my own Cavalier Turbo Mustang 3. So yeah, there's a lot to thank Mr. Powell for.
Top bloke. John Connolly says, on the subject of paint, with enamel washes being popular, do you guys see enamel paint coming back to popularity? That's a very good question.
I'm going to go no. I think enamels have a place in terms of washes because I've always been very much an oil paint wash sort of guy. But I have to say, over the last year, I've been playing with some of these ammo washes, and they are some of the best enamel washes I've ever used, and they perform very, very much like the best of the oil stuff that I would use as well. So I'm sort of slowly making a switch because I've had no clumping or binding or anything in the year or so that these have been open. They go on beautifully. They're thin enough to go into panel detail. They stay workable for a few hours. So I think they're fine. That they're good for that sort of thing. I don't really see them sort of taking over or making any serious headway back into the acrylic stroke lacquer market.
No,
I think that's.
no.
I think that has been the new paradigm for quite a lot of years now.
That ship has sailed, isn't it?
I think it has, if only for sort of drying times and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I first started getting Mr. Colour from Japan in about 1997, 1998. I was ordering it month by month when I discovered it. So yeah, it's I understand, Sovereign Colours. Sovereign, is it Sovereign? They're still doing extra colour is still available. And actually, I bought some extra colour to play with it only a couple of months ago. Bought some fresh extra colour to play with it. They have their uses, but I don't see them making any serious inroads back into the finishing sort of arena.
It's funny we talk about enamel washes because oh, for goodness sake, it's all right. My system has decided to. Oops. There we go. That's more like it. That's all right. My camera decided to stop working. I have, as I made the comment on the Interesting Modelling Company Facebook page the other week, having spent a month in hospital, what was the first project that I started coming back to? It was an ambulance. Of course it was an ambulance. And it's the Airfix 35th scale Austin K2Y, the KT. Now, I painted the interiors for these ambulances are an off-white creamy color. So I decided to reach for, of all things, it's AK's German ivory for interior of tanks. So there we go. That's what I use for that. And I started doing some washes, but for my washes, I have been using Ammo of MIG. It's Starship filth, but Starship filth. And I thin that in one of those little kind of ramekin dishes with some odorless thinner, some Bob Ross odorless thinner. But I got to say, I absolutely love using it. And I've probably slightly over-egged the weathering for this interior of this Airfix Austin ambulance a little bit, but it's a lot of it. I mean, once the roof is on, you're not going to see much in there anyway. So I think I'm going to give myself a pass on that. It's got to be said that when it comes to blending, it is this is where enamels will always win over acrylics, because you can just blend them absolutely beautifully. And I know I'm aware of, Drew, that we both watched that brilliant Vallejo DVD on weathering with acrylics, and if you remember, repeatedly, yes. And the next time you come up, I think we're going to have to watch it again. It's a brilliant video. But I've tried doing blends with acrylics, and they just don't have the same they don't have the same versatility that I find with oils, or with enamels anyway. Rory did ask a question, and he said, are the enamel washes just thinned? Are the enamel washes just thinned enamel paint? Yeah, I think pretty much they are.
I think they are, but I'm fairly convinced that there's something else going on with the ammo ones, though. Just for the length of time they remain workable for. Generally speaking, I've found in the past that if you do thin an enamel paint and use it for a wash, you've got quite a narrow band to work it. Once the thinners evaporated, within a couple of hours, it's really unworkable. without damaging the underlying paint. Whereas these ammo washes, they do seem to remain workable for multiple hours after application, just like an oil paint. So I'm not convinced that some of the more modern ones are just. I know some companies have done washes that literally are thinned enamels, and they basically they fell over within about 6 months, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I've got some here. I did, this is going back 10 years ago, and I did invest quite heavily in a lot of these washes, and most of them have ended up, sadly, in landfill because they just became completely unworkable. Which is why I like the oil brushes, because you can turn them into washes. And in fact, what you're looking at here is one of the stretchers for the Airfix Katie, and what I did with this was I painted that with, it was Vallejo wood for the handles, canvas for the main part of the stretcher. Then I think it was canvas with a little bit of yellow just to add a bit of variety to it. Then it was the Starship filth was added to the edges and everything, and it's just blended in. And it's probably a little bit over the top, but it just, I mean, this is going to be hidden inside the vehicle, so
you need to exaggerate it a bit for it to be visible at all, don't you?
Exactly. And again, I'm probably spending a disproportionate amount of time on things that won't be seen, but what the hell, you know, we not modelers, and don't we frequently do that? So you know, so I'm just trying to get back to my camera. So there we go. Yeah. So, oops, Daisy.
Oh, hello.
There we go. That's
there we go.
It's but yeah, I'm slowly getting bits done on the Airfix Katie. I think it's a brilliant kit, but then I'm biased. But I'm just enjoying it. It's a real blast. So yeah. What can I say? The thing about Starship Filth is that it's such a good neutral color that it just tends to work with everything without being too overpowering. So
yeah. I mean, I've got Starship Filth as the oil brusher, the Abteilung oil, and also that wash there. You know, it's good to have them, and they're all very slightly different in use. But they're all basically the same sort of. I know you can't really call it a brownish hue neutral, but it's as near to neutral and applicable to many different. It's sort of a browny grey colour, isn't it? A dirty browny grey, but it does suit an awful lot of colours as a colour to go over. So yeah.
Simon Lewis asks, he says, JM, when you go to gluing the Katie together after paint, what is your preferred glue that won't affect the paint? Well, pretty much anything will if you get it on it. I got to say my preferred is Tamiya Extra Thin Quick Setting, because that really does flash off very, very quickly. But I think the trick is that you just make sure that you're not kind of flooding it onto the surface, really, that it is going to start attacking the paint. Either that, or I will use super glue. So probably some gel super glue is the question to that. Yeah, and Jim makes a very good point. Scrape the surfaces to be blonded
yes,
and bonded as well. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Right, Drew. Any other business?
I don't think so. Not really. Not today. No.
Okay. I think we've bored these people enough this evening with our bits and pieces.
I did pick that up on Friday, so let's see.
Do you want to talk about that? Go on, talk about that.
That's a new set. That's not really. It's most. You know, we had the 48 scale one last year, and this 72nd scale one this year, which is really quite quite a lot simpler than the 48th one, but it's just as comprehensive a package, if you like. Beautiful, you know, beautiful instructions, beautiful toolings. And you know, it hasn't got the weapons bays of the 48th one. Looking around it, I've seen a couple of holes in here, which would indicate that they do have one with the parabrake housing plan for like Norwegian aircraft, but that isn't in this kit. And other than that, it's just a really nice, simple, very superbly well detailed. Surface detail is absolutely brilliant. You know, almost, you know, like scale, if you like, which I know we've had a lot of trouble with.
How many sprues are there in that kit?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7. Okay.
So
But two of those are the sprues you're holding because they're just repeat.
Yeah,
sprues,
that's identical. Those two sprues are obviously identical. Then you've got the forward fuselage and air intakes and stuff like that on that sprue. That's actually theoretically 2 sprues there. Look, that's
I say that does indicate where the mold may be slightly kind of broken up, if you see what I mean.
And then you've got this absolutely beautiful 1-part upper fuselage. It's actually remarkable. I mean, the F-35 is not a small aeroplane. It's a you know, you look at it compared to an F-16.
Yeah.
And it's actually a bit of a beast.
Yeah.
I was watching some video of them landing. I think it was at Leeuwarden in Holland a while back in the Netherlands. And these and F-16s doing touch and goes and stuff. And the size difference between the two is very, very marked indeed. One of the things I would not be surprised if at some point, similar to the F-16, where they did one simple kit and then re-released it with a load of stores later, given that that's an entirely independent mold there, sprue, I wouldn't be at all surprised if somewhere down the line Tamiya don't release that with a new lower fuselage with weapons bays as some kind of a premium, you know, as a bit more of a premium job for people who want a weapons bay. But yeah, it's just, you know, extremely comprehensive markings sheet there. I'm not going to get it out, but not less options than the 48th one. You've got basically US Air Force and Japanese ones there, but still all the extras there. Set of masks for the clear areas. So yeah, I mean, it's a I think this is about £35, this one, so it's not cheap.
No,
I will say that it's not cheap, and it's, you know, one of those kits where you'll have to make your own value decision on it. The Hasegawa one can be found for about half that price. The Academy one for about £20 if you look around. And they are both really, really nice models in their own right. I do think that's a great piece of box art, though. I think that's a really nice piece of box art. But I mean, this is clearly, you know, on another level altogether in terms of tooling. And it's just you know, it's a. I wouldn't buy multiples of these for the stash. I bought this one because I intend to build it. That's where the value judgment comes in these days, and I don't tend to buy kits like this. Whereas previously I'd have bought a couple of them, one to go on the stash and one to build. Now I just buy one to build. That's it. Yeah, very, very impressive model. And Mike says the weapons bay on the 48th one is, yeah, it's astonishing. That entire kit is just, you know, astonishing from start to finish. That said, I did get the Edward or the Brassin exhaust nozzle and interior this week for mine. So on the basis that I've now poured about 120 quid into that model, I probably ought to build it at some point.
It's almost as if Tamiya know what they're doing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, strangely, you know, a couple of years experience in this game. So you know they've got, you know, some idea what they're about.
We're going to field a couple of questions, then we are going to go. We're actually, what's going to happen is I just pinged it any other business. We are actually going to scrape an hour tonight. So what the heck? Jet Scale Models says, hey, Drew, you didn't mention that you might start doing videos again. Just realize if you do start doing that, your bench time is going to be cut in half. At least that is if you do any editing.
I mean, this is the issue that got me the first time, is that, you know, eventually in my videos I ended up with 3 camera positions and separate audio, and I was doing an awful lot of spending an awful lot of time. You know, a half hour's modeling would turn into 3 or 4 hours worth of editing. And eventually you just start thinking, I want to spend the time at the bench modeling. That said, over the course of the last couple of weeks, I've had some people say some very nice things about my videos and clearly want some more content. So, I mean, part of it was that there was a degree of vanity about it, and I never really thought I was making any impact. I never really getting the views and stuff like that. So it wasn't, you know, you see people doing, you know, models which bluntly aren't as good as mine and getting 30 or 40,000 views on it, and you're like, how are they doing that? You know, and so eventually, you know, I can't deny I got a little bit petulant about it, and I was like, why is nobody looking at mine? So there's kind of several different strands as to why I may or may not go back to doing some videos. I'm going to see how I feel over the next few weeks and maybe have a look at something. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, but a lot of people have said I need fixing. But yeah, it's a difficult one, and I would like to be doing stuff, but it's just so time consuming that it's quite easy to sap enthusiasm, because once you've done it really well, you want to keep doing it really well. You don't want to slide backwards, you know. I could get around, you know, I don't need the 3 camera positions like I had at one point and be doing picture in picture and, you know, tracking, filming in 4K and doing video tracking for the moving bits and all that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, you want to, because once you've started, anything else feels like you're going backwards.
It's a bit half-baked, isn't it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So all I can say on that is I'm considering options, and we will see. It's, you know, somebody said, would it not be better to use another platform to do it? And it's not about the platform. It's still about the time you're going to spend yourself making something that you want to show.
Which is why, to be honest with you, doing live streams is comparatively kind of like not easier, but you know what I mean. It's just like you just.
No, John, it is easier. It is easier. We sit here and we wing it and we chat to people, and we have, you know, we you know, sometimes you have a plan. Tonight we didn't really have a plan. Sometimes we have a very specific plan, and we stick to it, and it works. But no, this is very, very much more, you know, not informal, but off the cuff. You know, it's a
freeform.
People aren't just tuning into an audience. People are tuning in, and they're part of the show. You know, there's a backwards and forwards. So it works. That much works differently. So I do appreciate all the comments.
Yeah, talking of backwards and forwards, Tony's Hobby Room says, you guys are experienced with VMS varnish. What needle / noddle size? Get me teeth in. I've had brain surgery, people. What needle / I'm suddenly turning into the goons here. Needle, nozzle, new. And what needle / nozzle size, please? As tried to use it in a Badger Sotar and it all jammed up.
It's pressure. It's not about it. Honestly, it is not about the nozzle size. You can do it with a 0.18 nozzle. You've just got to keep turning the pressure up until it sprays. It's as simple as that. Look,
I was just going to say, there is my my satin. I never thin this stuff. I just
no, you don't.
spray it
Right.
at a slightly higher pressure, which is, I mean, people will say, what pressure do you use? I don't know. I just turn it up.
John, I'm just gonna switch to my other camera position. All right.
Right.
There you go.
Oh, you're going to do some modelling, aren't you?
That's the satin. Give it a quick shake. My airbrush. That's a 0.5 needle. It's up at around, I don't know, 40, 35, 40 psi. So you can hear that.
Yeah. Oh, we can certainly hear it. I can hear it here.
Yeah. So chuck that in. No thinning at all. Just use a bit of this. So just check that it's coming through. As that is, you can see that's coming through.
Yeah. And the thing about VMS is you do have to kind of like be a little bit more agendist with it. Yeah.
That's it. That area now is varnished.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll cut to air and we'll start. So just forcing it to flash off at the moment.
Yeah. Mike Williams makes a very good point. Hose it on. Yeah, absolutely. Hose it on.
Well, you saw how I put that on. That was hosed
Yeah.
on. That was one really generous, almost to the point of running, but not quite. And that's it.
Yeah. Here we go. Drew, Tony's Hobby Room says, VMS varnish, many thanks. Been so impressed with your views, but never realised it was pressure. Thank you so much for that advice.
Yeah, it's like the thing is, if you thin this, you immediately start impacting the final finish.
Yeah,
you shouldn't thin it. I'll just show you on the forward area. Just check that I've got flow, just so you can see it. Hopefully, and it is just, well, like Mike Williams says, hose it on. There you go.
Yeah.
And then, I wouldn't normally I'd just walk away from this and leave it. I'm just using cutting to air to just start.
Yep.
But as you can see, as it dries off, it starts pulling right down into the detail.
Mm-hmm.
There you go, guys. That's how easy that is how easy VMS is.
Yep.
To use.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And
then if I've got any left at the end, if I've got any left in the cup, you can just go and just blast it over until it's all used up, basically.
Yep.
So
I'm a big fan of the stuff. So
it's quite frankly, it's the best varnish I've ever used.
Yep.
So Jared there says he's be affected by residual mister thinner. Yeah, I mean, just make sure that your brush is completely clean. I would spray. I generally spray some lacquer thinner through mine, and then I'll spray a little drop of alcohol through, just to make sure that there's nothing lacquery. Although you can thin this with Mr. Color Thinner. I have done it, but again, you start messing around with the final finish you're trying to achieve. So, but and this is what I mean, guys, about try stuff. I've spent a year or two messing around with this stuff. I'm pretty confident with it now, which is why I was quite happy to go on there. And somebody said I was being brave. No, it's not really brave, Steve. It's just I know the product now.
Yeah.
I was reasonably certain. In fact, not reasonably. I was extremely certain that I could do that then as I did it, without any risk, without coming unstuck and looking like more of an idiot than I normally would.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. Tony Vaughan says, brilliant demonstration. That's what we need. So
you can see that after what, 2 or 3 minutes.
Yep.
That's the satin. So that's the finish the satin gives you.
Yep. No, I've
high pressure, high pressure, hose it on.
Yeah.
You need to get it just about so it's just before it would start running.
Yep. Where did we learn of this stuff? Was it Uncle Night Shift? It was, wasn't it?
I think it was Uncle Night Shift. Yeah, I think it was Martin. Yes.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I buy paint, so I'm always on the lookout for new varnishes. So I went straight to ordering some, and the initial stuff I got was from Poland. I had to order from Poland itself, and I've been a convert ever since. Yeah, Mike Williams there saying, have you used the VMS clear gloss? Mike, I don't. One of the things I don't like to do, I don't like acrylic glosses. I like lacquer glosses. I'll use the VMS clear gloss if I want to bring the shine up a little bit on like the satin, but I don't like using acrylic glosses, which is why that this will be finished with VMS satin eventually, but the coats that are on there now are GX112 gloss lacquer. So
Steve Moores asks, UK supplier of VMS.
Right, Albion Alloys are importing it now. So basically, anywhere that can deal with Albion Alloys can get it. I know that Andy's here from Scale Model Shed. He stocks it. Basically, anywhere that stocks has Albion Alloys as a trader or a supplier can get it. But yeah, it's about pressure with VMS. Whereas normally you would think of thinning it and matching a pressure to your thinning ratio and stuff. Not with VMS. You chuck it in a brush and you turn the pressure up till it atomizes, and that's it. It's that's as much as it goes. It's easy, isn't it? This modelling lark. Everybody should do more of it.
It is. You make it look easy, Drew.
Let's turn the compressor off.
Yep. Right. Well, we've amazingly we've poked through an hour tonight. I thought initially we were only going to be doing about 45 minutes because I just fatigue very quickly. But we've actually poked through an hour and 5 minutes tonight, which is admirable. So on that note, I want to say thank you to Drew for joining us tonight and for doing a demo for us. That was jolly kind of him, I think. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in tonight. We do appreciate your patronage.
Also, just as a final, and another thing,
and what
that shows is that if you have a modelling bench, your airbrush should be at your side as a tool. Just to pick up and use. It's nothing special, guys. It's just another tool.
Yep. Absolutely.
So keep it there and use it like that.
Yep, absolutely. Thing is, you and I, we grew up with airbrushes, so to us, they're just part of the furniture, aren't they?
Well, I've got 3 lying around my desk here, not even connected up to anything.
Yeah.
I just have airbrushes everywhere. I'm always buying them, aren't I? I'm hopeless.
You are always buying airbrushes. On that note, fingers crossed, we should be back next Sunday with a little bit of luck. Until then, thank you everybody who's tuned in tonight. Thank you, Drew, for joining us. Always good fun to have you on.
Should be here next week as well. Should be available next week if you want me back.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you very much. So hopefully I can put up some more updates with the Airfix KT ambulance as well and other bits and pieces. So until next time, everybody stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you very, very soon. So bye for now.
Take care all.